Hello everyone, this is Andy Mello from Mello Fab. I'd like to do a video on death wobble and front end of 3/4 1-ton trucks and up. Seems to be a hot topic. A lot of information floating around, people struggling with trying to figure it out on their truck, and I understand it can be very difficult sometimes to pin down. However, death wobble is just not something that happens just because. There's always a cause. There's always a reason. Most likely, it's a worn out steering component. It can obviously be some other things as well. Could be a tire issue, could be a lack of positive caster issue. There's a few things that can cause it. I'm going to cover it in this video, show you places to check. Another thing I want to cover is the difference between death wobble and bump steer. Bump steer is a situation where you're in your 3/4 or 1-ton truck heading down the highway. You hit a rough spot or some uneven pavement, and the steering wheel makes a little quick oscillation and quits just as soon as the bump's over. That's actually pretty normal, can be pretty much solved, eradicated with a better stabilizer shock on the steering, but it is kind of a rolled-in part of a solid front axle setup, especially with coil springs. Now, death wobble is something totally different. That's a situation where you hit a bad spot, maybe even the same spot I just referenced earlier, and your steering wheel goes into a violent shake, which doesn't quit until the vehicle slows down to a certain speed, and it will eventually go away. A steering stabilizer is not a fix for this in any way, shape, or form. It is only a Band-Aid. You can put one or multiple stabilizers on it and stop it, but the condition is still there, and it will eventually wear them out and come back. So it is very important to get to the cause of the issue. So that's what I'm going to cover on this video. The vehicle that I'm choosing for this video is a 2022 F250 trimmer. It does not have death wobble. The steering suspension components are in good shape, but I'm going to use this to show everyone what to check if you experience death wobble. The most common thing on the Super Duty is the track bar. It's the bar that centers your front axle on the 4-wheel drive underneath the vehicle. Make sure the bolt is not loose, which is a very rare occasion on these trucks, but it can happen. You'll have somebody get in the vehicle, rock the steering wheel back and forth pretty aggressively, and the tires gripping on the pavement will try to push the front axle. So it'll put pressure on this joint. It's going to have some slight deflection just because it's a rubber bushing, but it doesn't need to jerk or clunk back and forth or up and down. You're also going to check this joint on this other end right here. Same thing here. It has to be able to move to not bind up, but you don't want it jumping up and down or jerking back and forth. The next most common thing is going to be your drag link connection here at your pitman arm. You see, I can actually physically turn this by hand, which that is normal. You should be able to do that. It has to be able to pivot so it doesn't bind, but it doesn't need to jump up and down or jump back and forth in itself. And then the next thing that would be on your list to check is the tie rods on the driver and passenger. And since this Super Duty has two, we'll concentrate on this side. The top tie rod has a long shank that goes all the way through, and the same concept goes for these as the other joints. It has to have rolling movement to not bind, but it does not need to wobble up and down or back and forth. That will cause death wobble for sure. Once you have checked all of those joints, then you can jack the vehicle up off the ground and put a pry bar underneath the tire and put some good leverage on the tire. Check your upper and lower ball joints at these places here, and then your wheel bearing for play. If there is excessive play or any play at all, which on these trucks you should have no play, you'll see, and you'll actually feel and hear a clunk. You'll see movement in the joint, in and out or up and down. That will definitely cause death wobble for sure. If all of these components in the steering system, whether it's this truck or any truck with a solid front axle that's 4-wheel drive, checks out, then definitely have your tires road force balanced, not just balanced, because a tire can cause a death wobble as well. And then if that all checks out, then your next point of check would need to be your alignment, because too low of caster can also cause it as well. I hope these pointers help someone out on somewhat of a difficult thing to find sometimes.